Broken hearts and broken wings, bring it all, everything. Bring the song you fear to sing, all is welcome here. And even if you broke your vow 1,000 times, come anyhow. We're stepping into the power of now, and all is welcome here. See the Father and the Son, reunited, here they come, dancing to the sacred drum. They know they're welcome here. See the shaman and the mighty priest, see the beauty and the beast, singing I have been released, and all is welcome here. Standing alone at the gateless gate, too drunk on love to hesitate. And to the winds I cast my fate and remnants of my fear. I took a deep breath and I leapt and I awoke as if I'd never slept. Tears of gratitude I wept, I was welcome here. Bring your laughter, bring your tears, your busy lives and your careers, and bring the pain you carried for years. All is welcome here. And freedom is not so far away. There's only one price we have to pay. Live our dreams till they fade away, and let them go. Waking up, let them go. Welcome here. La 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 la. All is welcome here. La 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 la. Let him go. Let him go. La 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 la. Welcome here. La 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 la. All is welcome here. All is welcome here. All is welcome here.
Well, thank you for that introduction to our Good Friday service. And we're going to focus on the 7 last words of Jesus this evening. And for those who may not know me, I'm James Trapp, the Senior Minister of Worship here at Spiritual Life Center. But let me introduce the rest of our Good Friday worship team. To my left and your right, or depending on where you are, is Reverend Deborah Phillips. And on the piano and kind of running the show tonight from music is Larry Shiflett. Yes, and David DeMario and Mary Rupp. And Patty Peters is here lighting and unlighting the candles. Well, we come together this evening to pray and to commune and to remember the way shower, to remember the model of our possibilities from the Master, Jesus the Christ. So this is the day that we commemorate the immediate prelude to a story of victory, a story of the Christ Spirit's triumph over the most horrific of conditions. And so we come together to experience a retelling of the supreme test of Jesus' life. This ancient, sacred story illustrates that we, having faith in the power and the presence and the love of God, can rise above all earthly limitations in order to attain the fullness of our spiritual life.
And as we begin, we light this candle so to symbolize the everlasting light that shines within us all, the Christ light that clears away all darkness.
So let's take a moment to take in the symbol of that first Christ light and recognizing that it represents the light that is within each and every one of us. For we are reminded that the Christ is not something or someone that happened many years ago. It is within each and every one of us today. And we are here to let our Christ light shine so much that individuals see our good works. That we need not go anywhere to realize our oneness with this presence, this power, this love, the divine. But this presence that we call the Christ, which we can call by so many different names, the Atman presence, the Buddhic field, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. It is within each and every one of us. And so we acknowledge that light. We acknowledge that Christ presence. And as we do, we begin to radiate from the depth of our being the truth of who and what we are. And we anchor in this world a little bit more of the expanding good that we are here to do. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen. Well, we know during Christmas or the Mass celebration of the Christ, we celebrated the birth of Jesus of Nazareth. And what we discovered was the metaphysical meaning of his birth, his rising consciousness, the so-called lost years where he traveled and studied, and then his return to begin his ministry, his purpose. And as we come into the story today on Good Friday, Jesus is under a death sentence and hangs on a cross between 2 thieves. And we may wonder, how did it come to this? So before we enter the metaphysical implications of Jesus' last hours on earth, let us consider what transpired during those 3 years. Certainly, many good things came about during those years. There were miracles and healings, turning water into wine, and many wonderful teachings, like the Sermon on the Mount. These are very high consciousness moments we prefer to focus on. But there were other moments where Jesus openly defied Jewish authority. He openly challenged the Pharisees when he declared that what comes out of the mouth is more important than what goes in the mouth, a direct attack on the ancient dietary laws. In fact, he was admonished for healing people on the Sabbath, but he didn't stop. There were 7 instances of Jesus healing on the Sabbath. He charged through the temple courtyard and overturned the money changers' tables. And then, to top it off, he rode into Jerusalem just as King Solomon had, with people waving palm fronds and proclaiming him King of the Jews. The truth is, Jesus was always needling authority. His message was one of compassion and one of love. His message was one of forgiveness and understanding. And it was this teaching, this very teaching, that required him to push back at the limited traditional thinking of the Pharisees. Looking at this dynamic, we can see that Jesus had constant pressure to stray from his spiritual path. Certainly, it would have made his life so much easier if he simply played by the rules. But he chose again and again to follow his innate spiritual guidance. Indeed, he chose to continue making drastic comments and observations, take actions that defied religious law, to push for higher and higher consciousness among his followers. For most of these 3 years, Jesus' life was not in danger. And at the time, one might very well say, sure, he can get away with all this because there were no consequences. And so the question might be, what would Jesus really do when it came down to life and death? Would his teachings hold? Would he fulfill the purpose for which he was born? The tension between Jesus and the Pharisees had been rising for some time, and he intentionally agitated them by riding in Jerusalem, as had King Solomon, letting people proclaim him King of the Jews. He knew this would push things way beyond their comfort zone, and there would be pushback. But he held his ground. He stood in truth. He had many opportunities to dodge this experience and simply disappear. The disciples even encouraged him to do so. He had one last meal with his disciples, gave them a final teaching, and went out to pray. It's not that he was without moments of doubt. We recall that poignant moment in the garden the night before his arrest. He prayed for his cup, or this cup, to be passed by him. But he stayed. He was arrested. He could have recanted to Pilate or Herod, but he refused to engage them. He had another opportunity on the cross, but again, he let it pass. And we find him on the cross today, his human self in pain, hungry, dehydrated, dirty, yet still teaching. When we examine the last 7 statements that Jesus made on the cross, we find that they embody his entire message.
Metaphysically, we don't view the crucifixion of Jesus as a tragedy, but as a step towards a great victory. Jesus assured us that the same victory illustrated in his story can be attained by us. During his crucifixion experience, Jesus gave us 7 statements. These statements are scattered among the 4 Gospels, and each of the 7 statements made by Jesus may be considered as a continuation of his teachings, which are especially appropriate for us today. Jesus used a unique form of highly condensed metaphysical teaching, almost a kind of verbal shorthand. But for those with eyes to see and ears to hear, there is significant spiritual meaning. The crucifixion itself symbolizes a process of crossing out or eliminating that which is no longer needful for our continued unfoldment. What has fulfilled its purpose in us must either be lifted to a higher level of the expression in consciousness or released completely. Jesus' crucifixion illustrates both of these meanings. The 7 statements by Jesus from the cross verbalize 7 great realizations of truth, which are necessary for our continued spiritual growth and unfoldment.
Well, at this time, in order to have a continuation of the energy that we want for this evening, we're going to have our offertory. And for those who may be watching online, you have an opportunity to support Spiritual Life Center by simply texting SLC Love to 44321. That's SLC Love to 44321. Or you can go to our website, slcworld.org, and click the Donate tab, and you can give in multiple ways, including by mail. For those who are present, we simply invite you to take your gift or your love offering and know that you're in a flow of a principle that says that whatever you give out does come back to you, perhaps in ways you never imagined and from directions you never thought of. For this is the nature of God. This is the nature of the universe. It is circular. So we give not to receive, but we know that is one of the byproducts. So at this time, let us affirm and say together our offertory blessing. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. Thank you, God.
Drive the nails in my hands, laugh at me where you stand. Go ahead and say it isn't me. Day will come when you will see and Death can't keep me in the ground.
solid ground.
If we take that in, that we indeed rise again, not only in the story of Jesus, but for ourselves. I think any resurrection is based upon, among other things, forgiveness. And as we look at Jesus' last words, among the first were, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Inner forgiveness is the mightiest of spiritual acts. Without it, nothing in the nature of real spiritual progress can be achieved. Jesus made this the first of his 7 statements because of its primary importance. It is significant that he does not claim to be doing the forgiving. He acknowledges God as the only forgiving power. Human beings would be wise to do the same. We should try to realize that it is really not my forgiveness or your forgiveness, but is the forgiving love of God. In fact, we can say the presence, the power, and the love of God is never in a state of unforgiveness, because nothing we can do can stop God from loving us, supporting us, uplifting us. At best, we can frustrate this presence, but we cannot stop it. It makes it easier to forgive when we realize that it's not something personal, which I must cook up for myself. All I do is consent. I consent to let the loving power of God simply be directed through me in behalf of others who need such forgiveness. For they know not what they do. If people really knew what they were doing, when they were doing something wrong, or at least what we perceive to be wrong, they simply would not go through with it. Behind all offenses, there is a lack of understanding. Even a person who thinks he knows what he is doing when he harms another actually does not. Thus, on Friday morning, at the 3rd hour, 3 crosses were raised in Golgotha, and Jesus was placed in the middle cross with a thief on either side of him. He was able to look down at his tormentors and say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. I hear you pray for those who torture you. These are the words that tear my grudges all apart. Create in me a tender heart. Create in me a tender heart.
When we hear these first words of Jesus from the cross, we say, loving God, we bless those who persecute us. In doing so, the Christ Spirit cleanses us of the injustices we have committed and those that have been committed toward us. To those we have offended, we ask for forgiveness. To those we have hurt, or for those who have hurt us, we offer forgiveness. freely forgive, and I am forgiven through the Christ that dwells within me. As I repeat it, just repeat it silently to yourself in your own mind. I freely forgive and am forgiven through the Christ that dwells within me. I freely forgive and am forgiven through the Christ that dwells within me.
And then Jesus said, "Today you will be with me in paradise." What is paradise? Where is it? Jesus knew, and he told us about it many times. Paradise is a name given to the here and now consciousness of the oneness of God. Where is oneness with God? It is here. When is oneness with God? It is now. Jesus spoke these words to one of the thieves being crucified with him. And Charles Fillmore writes that these two thieves actually symbolize past and future. Memories of the past rob us. Anxiety about the future robs us. But spiritual awareness, or Jesus, never robs us. Rather, it gives us strength and protection. What does spiritual awareness in us, or Jesus, say about our past or future? Does it tell us to fear it? Does it urge us to protect ourselves from it? No. Spiritual awareness says to us, "Today you will be with me in paradise." In other words, spiritual awareness says we can bring our concerns into the here and now consciousness of oneness with God. We need not project it into the past or future, but rather bring all thoughts into paradise. Paradise is our oneness with God, and it is here, it is now, it is forever. As the day progressed, one of the thieves railed at Jesus, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other thief rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we are condemned justly, for we are receiving the due reward for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus spoke, saying, "Truly I say unto you, today you will be with me in paradise."
Turn your head to address a dying thief. Today you'll be in paradise with me. These are the words where every hopeless soul must start. Create in me a trusting heart. Create in me a trusting heart.
As we return now to that quiet place within, we carry with us the knowledge that whenever we turn to the Christ of our being and ask for help, it is always freely given. In this affirmation, in faith I turn to the Christ within and know that this day and every day I am one with my good, one with my God. And I'll repeat it and say it to yourself quietly. Say it to yourself. In faith, I turn to the Christ within and know that this day and every day I am one with my good, one with my God. In faith, I turn to the Christ within and know that this day and every day I am one with my good, one with my God.
The next words from Jesus are, "Woman, behold your son. Behold your mother." These words were spoken to Mary and, according to tradition, to the disciple John. Mary and John were not mother and son, but Jesus was speaking from a level of the highest understanding concerning the truth of human relationships. One of the greatest realizations that can come to a person is the realization of his true relationship to every other human being in the human family. Whatever biological ties may exist, the metaphysical ties are stronger and more important, our spiritual connection. In spirit, we are each other's mother. In spirit, we are each other's brother and sister. We realize this, and to accept this will guarantee great steps forward in spiritual unfoldment. Jesus saw his mother and said to her, "Woman, behold your son." "Look at John," he said. "Son, behold your mother." And from that hour, John took Mary as his own.
Then unto Mary, "Woman, behold your son. Behold your mother," your dying words to John. These words began a family of which I'm part. Created me a holy heart. Created me a holy heart.
We are reminded by this third statement that it is our responsibility to provide for those who are unable to care for themselves. We fulfill our human responsibilities willingly and with great love. I will speak this affirmation first, and then we'll speak it to our own minds and hearts quietly. As I unfold spiritually, I fulfill my every obligation responsibly, wisely, and lovingly. As we say it to ourselves, as I unfold spiritually, I fulfill my every obligation responsibly, wisely, and lovingly. As I unfold spiritually, I fulfill my every obligation responsibly, wisely, and lovingly.
And as the time grew near, Jesus said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" Once again, Jesus teaches by making himself an example. Notice that this is a question, not a statement. Jesus was probably not asking that question for his own sake because he knew the real answer. He knew truth. He spoke the question to show us what is often in our own hearts as we seek to follow him. The question sparks a wondering in us. Why am I feeling separated from God? Even when we know better, this feeling may creep over us. This teaching shows us that asking why is okay. It is normal, it is healthy. And when the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And Jesus cried out with a loud voice, my God, why have you forsaken me?"
Your darkest hour, you cried out from a tree. My God, why have you forsaken me? These words of anguish pierce me through just like a dart. Create in me a thankful heart. Create in me a thankful
When we experience spiritual crucifixion, we may feel, as Jesus did when he uttered those words, that even God seems to have forsaken us. In these periods of darkness, Christ's Spirit within gives us the strength to persevere. God is here, even in our darkest and most painful and confusing moments. In our affirmation, God's love comforts me, God's power strengthens me in my hour of need. And let's take that into our hearts. God's love comforts me, God's power strengthens me in my hour of need.
The next words from Jesus are, I thirst. I thirst. This is an affirmation of a need. It is an asking. The asking is immediately followed by the meeting of that need. Jesus was given a sponge soaked with a mixture of vinegar and gall or myrrh, a soothing drink. Jesus has previously taught, ask and you will receive. Here he gives us an example of practicing what he preached. There are times when a person finds him or herself in a situation where things look hopeless. During such times, they feel an overpowering thirsting after righteousness. What should one do then? Jesus said, ask and you will receive. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. With God, no situation is hopeless. For the presence of God, the power of God is mightier than circumstances. After this, Jesus, knowing that all was complete, said, I thirst.
You said I thirst, yet it was not for wine. You thirst for love from desert souls like mine. And with these words a flowing river you impart. Create in me a loving heart. Create in me a loving heart.
There comes a time in spiritual unfoldment when we finally know that the body is not limited to the physical. It is the temple of the living God. And its full needs can only be met by drinking of the living water. the life of the Christ. As we return now to the silence, we once again affirm, I drink of the living water of spirit, and every need of my mind and body is fulfilled. Let's quietly take that in. I drink of the living water of spirit, and every need of my mind and body is fulfilled. I drink of the living water of spirit, and every need of my mind and body is fulfilled.
And Jesus said, "It is finished." Everything happens in a person's life as part of a cycle of learning, growing, unfolding. Each event, each experience, each relationship, every victory, every defeat is a factor in the great overall pattern of evolution. Though difficult, the highest thing we can do is recognize when something has fulfilled its role in our life and is now finished business. Some people never learn to recognize when something is finished. And this pertains to persons, possessions, jobs, pleasures. But it is especially pertains to cycles of experience in our life process. Certain difficult or painful experiences will revisit us until we become aware that something in our consciousness is calling them. But then awareness dawns, and we say, as Jesus did, "It is finished." Holding no grudges, nursing no hurt feelings, carrying no unhappy memories. If it is finished, let it go. The work is done. Greater good is now in store, and we let the past bury the past. It is finished.
Then it is finished. Your work on earth was done. For in 3 days your battle would be won. These are the words with which you crown your works of art. Create in me a perfect heart. Create in me a
When we come to the limit of human effort and know that we have done all we can do, we keep our faith and know that with God, all things are possible. We have done all we can humanly do, and we totally surrender our will to God. And let's take this affirmation. The living, loving Christ of my being works for my highest good in all matters that I release to it. I let go and let God. Let's take this into our hearts. The living, loving Christ of my being works for my highest good in all matters that I release to it. I let go and let God. The living, loving Christ of my being works for my highest good in all matters that I release to it. I let go. I let God.
Well, the 7 last words from Jesus are, Abba, into thy hands I commit my spirit. In the beginning, God. in every ending, God. God is our all in all. Jesus had gone through a complete cycle in which he had accomplished exactly what he had come here to do. He had brought that cycle to a climax in the symbolism of the drama of the crucifixion. The word he chooses to verbalize that climax are the statement which is the apotheosis. Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. People often wonder, what is going to happen to me next? If we will follow the example of Jesus, we can know that we can safely place ourselves, our lives, our bodies, our future in God's hands. We are not taking any risks when we do this. God is completely dependable because God cannot be changed. When Jesus gives us his example of commending his whole spirit into God's hands, he is once again demonstrating his own teachings. God is the answer to everything. God is the meaning behind everything. God is the only fate in store for his children, and God is absolute good. There was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour, while the sun's light failed and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, crying out a loud voice, said, Abba, into your hands I commit my spirit. And having said his last breath, he breathed his last breath.
Into your hands, Father, I commend my breath. Your final prayer as you close your eyes in death. And with these words, one day I'll fly to where you are. Create in me faithful heart. Create in me faithful
As Jesus spoke the seventh statement, he surrendered his spirit. Not my will, but yours be done. Into the care and keeping of God, I give myself and all that concerns me. I rest from my labors and let God's will for good come forth in my life. So let us take this final affirmation and embody it and know it is the truth. I release and let go of my concerns. God's will be done in me now. Silently say along with me as I repeat it again. I release and let go of my concerns. God's will be done in me now. I release and let go of my concerns. God's will be done in me now.
Christ has nobody now but yours. He's got no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which he looks, compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands with which he blesses all the world. Yours are the hands. Yours are the feet. Yours are the eyes. You are his body. And Christ has nobody now but yours. No hands, no feet on earth but yours. You are the eyes with which he looks, compassion on this world. And Christ has nobody now on earth but yours. And Christ has nobody now on earth but yours. And Christ has nobody now but yours. He's got no hands, no feet on earth but yours.
Well, the last words were leading up to Jesus taking his last breath. But like any story with a good plot, there's a twist. And so we invite you to come back Sunday for the rest of the story. I invite you now to go in peace.